Area of expertise, instructional design. Instructional design is important for a few reasons. First, talent development professionals must align with the organizational strategy. Strong alignment correlates to achieving goals, and skilled workforce offers the company a competitive advantage. Business strategy and drivers are associated with potential learning solutions. Business driver is a resource, process, or condition for organizational growth. Talking to people helps you identify their needs so you can align your talent development efforts to the business goals. Needs assessment approaches. Research methods. 3 of them are information scanning, data gathering, and analysis. To ensure learning is aligned and occurring, you can meet with a supervisor before to clarify what's needed most, meet with a supervisor after to follow up and answer any questions, and offer any follow-up support. That follow-up support can come in the form of job aids or answering questions. Question number 1. As a TD professional, you've been given the opportunity to fill in for your manager who's out on 6 months of maternity leave. The vice president suggested that you need to think more strategically so you can help the organization achieve its goals. How will you begin to do that? Response B is correct. Meet with the department heads of the departments that you serve to learn about their problems. It's a good way to begin to think about how the talent development department can align with other departments and support them. Question, what is a business driver? A business driver is a resource, process, or condition required to achieve organizational strategies. The purpose of a business driver is for talent development to focus the design to meet the business requirements. Steps prior to learning that prepares people for what's about to happen. Clarify with management what participants are expected to do better or differently and how this aligns with business goals. Identify which action management will take after the event to reinforce and give feedback. Design support with both hard copy and online materials that can be used after the event. Ensure participants know how their efforts will affect business goals. Be certain participants know what is expected of them and how they'll be held accountable. Clearly identify the trainer's role in support and follow-up. Ensure participants know how to access support after the event. Question, what is the value for TD professionals to understand business strategy and goals? Answer, to better link learning to support organizational strategies. This answer is correct because understanding the business strategy links learning to support the organization and aligns the two to achieve the organizational goals. Learning theory. Question. A TD professional is tailoring instructional materials to the leadership training needs of an organization's executives. This is an example of A, the application of adult learning theory in designing learning experiences. Response A is correct because tailoring instructional materials to executive leadership training needs is an example of ensuring that the design of the materials relates to the different ways that adults learn, which is one way to apply adult learning theory. The role adult learning theory plays in learning in the design of solutions. There are 5 ways to consider learning strategies, tactics, experiences, and learning environments that support theories. Relate the design of materials to the different ways that people learn. Explain why training is designed the way it is. Access designs to ensure that it meets the needs of the learners. Outline how learning theory influences knowledge acquisition, retention, and the application of information. Another learning theory is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Question. Which of the following best describes why Maslow's hierarchy of needs is important in relation to adult learning? 5 levels of needs indicate that a person can achieve a higher level of need only after the lower levels are satisfied, which suggests that people are motivated by different factors that may be unknown or difficult to discern. This is correct because Maslow's hierarchy of needs categorizes 5 levels of needs: psychological, safety, belongingness, esteem, and self-actualization. That people at different times, which means that people are motivated by different things. Maslow's hierarchy of needs states that it's about motivating people to achieve their potential. Needs are complex and change over time. They must satisfy the lower needs in order to move up the hierarchy. An example of a talent development professional using Maslow's hierarchy of needs in training is adjusting the temperature, discussing the ground rules, and completing the team building experience where the facilitator addresses the basic needs of the class. This allows them to have critical debate and deepen the level of discussion. It allows them to move up the hierarchy of needs. Starting from the top and moving down with self-actualization, a couple examples are the number of training opportunities and opportunities for growth and achievement. Under esteem is respect from colleagues. Under belonging is camaraderie. Under safety is a safe working environment. And under psychological is wages and salary. External and environmental influences of Maslow's hierarchy. Question. Your organization is just downsized. You are performing the first instructor-led training since the reduction. Even though the downsizing is relatively small and some people took a buyout, you've taken extra care to create an environment that is conducive to learning. You will have coffee and food available for learners and have arranged the room in a semicircle. You've also included additional time at the beginning of the class to conduct a What's on Your Mind activity. The activity is designed to explore each learner's current mindset, identify their immediate needs, and identify their expectations for the class. What concept are you incorporating in your design? And the answer is external and environmental influences and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is correct because external and environmental factors such as stress, company conditions, and uncertainty may influence a participant's ability to learn. Maslow's hierarchy of needs contends that a person can achieve the next level of hierarchy only after the lower level of needs, such as psychological, safety, and belongingness, have been satisfied. Malcolm Knowles is known for the adult learning theory, or andragogy. Andragogy is a type of learning theory for adults, and it's in contrast to pedagogy, which is a learning theory for children. Adults are self-directed. They're rich resources for learning. The developmental tasks of social roles are important to their relevance and their readiness. They need to have an immediacy of application. The learning orientation needs to be problem-centered, and the motivation is intrinsic. I remember andragogy because Malcolm Knowles knows that adults learn differently than children. Question. Which of the following is not an adult learning characteristic based on the definition of andragogy? C. As people mature, their readiness to learn is directly related to age and curriculum. Response C is correct because age level and curriculum are not two of the 5 key principles of andragogy. Those principles are self-concept of the learner, prior experience, readiness to learn, orientation to learning, and motivation to learn. Self-concept of the learner is self-directed. They crave control over the learning experience. Learning is related to prior experiences of the learner. They relate new information to existing knowledge, help learners create their beliefs to accept new information, and allow them to skip information they already know. Readiness to learn is developed by life experience. Determine the what's in it for me because they're motivated to learn to fulfill their roles. Goal orientation, and they want to be able to immediately apply the knowledge to real life situations. Question. You are a TD professional designing a new way to begin several of the health and wellness courses you facilitate. You've decided to begin a CPR certification class with a true story of an employee who became ill at work and was kept alive by a coworker administering CPR until paramedics arrived. Which adult learning principle have you selected? The answer is readiness. Response A is correct because readiness to learn is one of the key principles of Malcolm Knowles' andragogy theory of adult learning. Adults participate in learning courses to achieve a particular goal and are most ready to learn when they can immediately relate and apply the new knowledge or skills to real-life situations. Learning is task or project-centered. The motivation to learn is based on internal incentives and curiosity. Question. You are developing a course to teach learners how to use a new human resources system. The current system has been used for 10 years and all the staff have been in their roles for more than 10 years. Which of the following is not a challenge to develop an effective training? And the answer is adult learners are objective-oriented. They're objective-oriented, and this is correct because according to Malcolm Knowles, adults primarily participate in learning programs to achieve particularly personal or professional goals or objectives. In this scenario, goals or objectives will not be challenges to developing effective training. People are motivated to learn when intrinsic motivation is present and the fear of failure or unleashing information decreases that motivation. An example. An instructor guides learners to select topics that interest them and then share personal stories that relate to the topic. Orientation to learning. Subject and problem-focused learning. Learning should focus on life experiences. They're motivated to learn only when it helps them perform tasks or real-world experiences. Real-life or experience-oriented learning situations are critical. Adults learn differently than children. In the field of talent development, what is Malcolm Knowles' key contribution to adult learning? And the answer is andragogy. It's correct because Malcolm Knowles was one of the first researchers to propose that adults learn differently from children. To indicate the differences, Knowles popularized the term andragogy and pedagogy. Here's a quick tip. Provide written directions along with verbal directions because people take in information differently and you should deliver it in different ways. Teaching versus facilitating learning. Designing for a facilitated learning-centered environment exemplifies adult learning principles. Teaching is telling of information, and we're moving away from this method of instruction, especially with adults, and moving towards facilitating the learning process. Learners will assume the responsibility for the learning, and there's a high level of participation that is expected in that. That includes questioning techniques, soliciting ideas, brainstorming, and small group discussions. Instructional design lends to encouraging participation. And this can be done through self-assessment, role plays, case studies, debates, teach-backs, and other learner involvement. The discovery process gives maximum learning potential. It is increasing the ability to apply the new information into real-life situations. Again, facilitating the learning experience is exemplified in the adult learning principles. Characteristics for learning. There are 4: motivation, goals, experience, and culture. Motivation, goals, experience, and culture. The first in motivation is WIFM. What's in it for me? Getting that across to your learner. Success encourages us to retain information so that moving up the career ladder and that intrinsic motivation for success will help your learners to retain that information. Using both intrinsic and extrinsic awards, intrinsic being the most powerful. And here are some approaches to motivating learners. There are 4 of them: inclusion, attitude, meaning, and competence. Again, motivating learners through inclusion, attitude, meaning, and competence. Let's start with inclusion. The sense of belonging, encouraging meaningful dialogue, and offering respect and connection. The second is attitude, emotions and data combined, and a positive attitude toward learning. We want to make sure that the learner knows that the learning is relevant and that we're offering choices. The next is meaning, and that's engaging experiences to create meaning for the learner. And finally, competence, learner effectiveness and reward. So allowing them to be effective in what they're learning and then offering those awards. So the approaches for motivating learners again are inclusion, attitude, meaning, and competence. The second characteristic for learning is goals. Learners want to focus on a goal, and they want to learn information they can immediately apply, especially adult learners. After motivation and goals is experience. Designers link new information to existing knowledge. And this results in leading to powerful and relevant learning experiences. Linking new information to existing knowledge results in powerful and relevant learning experiences. Experiential learning works for adults, and it's especially popular when judgments are necessary. There are 4 ways that you can use experiential learning. Practicing in a real world or stimulated environment, and this can be done through simulation or case study. Posing real life problems. Responding to the problem for key learning. And following up with a debrief to reinforce that learning. So practicing the problem in a simulated environment, posing the problem, responding to the problem for key learning, and following up with a debrief to reinforce learning. Characteristics for learning are motivation, goals, experience, and finally, culture. And when we talk about culture, there's several of them in an organization. There's safety-oriented culture, quality-oriented culture, ethical, technology-driven, innovation, customer service-oriented, compassionate, team-based, constructive, passive defensive, aggressive defensive, and competitive. And cultures vary from team to team. Question. Your company is getting ready to begin using a new system for tracking time and attendance. The new system affects everyone in the company. You've worked 6 weeks developing an instructor-led training that everyone will attend. You've customized activities and delivery methods for each department, including sales, marketing, manufacturing, accounting, and others. You've taken extra time and been attentive to the nuances in each department and all of the individuals across the company. What important elements of design guided your effort? The answer, culture and modes of learning. Culture and modes of learning is correct because you need to account for organizational cultures which can also differ from department to department. You must also realize that studies show that learners have multiple intelligences with unique aptitudes. National cultures also exist, and there's a power distance culture. This includes the formality of relationships. There's a dependency of learners on the instructor, and there's this high level of conformity in the power distance culture. How culture influences learning. Verbal and nonverbal messages do not match. There's a reluctance to speak. There may be limited eye contact or proximity to others. There may be a power distance between the people. And as talent development professionals, we need to consider the following: cultural norms and values that might exist, how they differ among learners, implications norms and values have in designing content, and adjustments needed to the design. Adult development and age. The brain is capable of continual learning. We focus on experiences that challenge assumptions. Present learning with a disoriented dilemma helps them critically reflect on the assumptions they hold. Let's talk about millennials. These are people who are 23 to 38 years old. They enjoy flexible experiences on demand, especially things that they can use on their mobile devices, appreciate continuous learning, and they want the learning to be relevant to their work and their life. They're highly receptive to feedback and coaching. Let's look at some classical learning theories. There's 3 of them we're going to talk about: behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. Question. According to behaviorism, which of the following elements should be included in a learning design? The answer is rewards. Rewards are important in behaviorism because it's based on the premise that learning occurs primarily through the reinforcement of desired responses. Inside of behaviorism, there are some advantages. Establishing objectives that are clear and unmistakable, ensuring behavioral practice, not just theory. It works best for helping learners to acquire behavioral skills, highly specific and observable. Learners know when they've succeeded. Behaviorism is concerned with behaviors between stimuli and response to control behavior. Learning occurs through the reinforcement of desired responses. There are 7 techniques: prompting, cueing, behavior modeling, simulating, role-playing, skill drilling, and positive reinforcement. An example is a signal used at the end of the activity. The facilitator might use a chime to bring the group back together. That's an example of behaviorism. Skinner was a big theorist in this area. There's also programmed learning. In programmed learning, information is broken into distinct chunks. A new chunk is added at each step, and immediate feedback is offered. The behavior is shaped until the learning objective is met. Behaviorism focuses on observable behavior. And instructional designers use behaviorism to build objectives, for criterion referenced testing, for testing prototypes on targeted populations, and chunking content based on learning objectives. The next classical theory is cognitivism. Question. Cognitivism is an approach based on a principle that learning occurs primarily through exposure to logically presented information and concerns the organization of memory and thinking. This is correct because cognitivism concerns itself with the organization of memory and thinking based on a model of the mind as an information processing system. So if you think of cognitive learning, you think about thinking, and thinking has to do with the mind as an information processing system. Learning occurs primarily through the exposure to logically presented ideas. Cognitism represents a shift from a focus on behavior to an interest in the organization of memory and thinking. The mind is an information processing system. Designers use it to help learners. They use it in 4 different ways: to organize the information, objectives, chunking, well-designed instruction, and order. Assimilate new content into existing knowledge, start from current use examples, and real-life stories. Strengthen new knowledge into memory, practice, feedback, summary test, and on-the-job application. And to focus attention to answer the what's in it for me question, to incorporate movement and activities. These are all around the idea of cognitivism. And finally, behaviorism. Let's go back to that for just a minute. We're going to look at the advantages of behaviorism again. Establishes objectives that are clear and unmistakable. Ensures that behavioral practice is a practice, not just a theory. It works best for helping learners to acquire behavior skills. It's highly specific and observable. Learners know when they've succeeded. In cognitivism, the advantages are it treats people as adults, focuses on thinking skills, emphasizes foundational knowledge, builds a base for information, concepts, and rules, and provides the rationale upon which action is based. Finally, my favorite, which is constructivism. The advantages of constructionism are it's discovery-oriented, it centers on the learner's understanding, it builds learner understanding with real-world relevance, it allows for differences in learning backgrounds and experiences, and it has facilitators guide the learners through the learning process. In constructivism, learning is constructed. Learners can only interpret information from their own experiences. So personalized learning is necessary. It needs to be set in authentic context, and is oriented to problem solving. Learners are motivated to learn when they believe they can be successful. Instructors act as facilitators, guiding and stimulating learning. An example, a Six Sigma course is organized to support the ability of a student to solve the following problem. How does one reduce the number of Medicare billing rejections for a home healthcare company? Question. Theories of learning and memory are concerned with how learners deal with and internalize information. This is correct because the theories of learning and memory relate to how adults deal with and internalize information in order to make change. Assimilation incorporates new ideas into an existing framework, may occur when new experiences are aligned with internal beliefs, and when not aligned, may change the perception of the learning to fit into existing beliefs. It's discovery-oriented, connected to what they might experience in the real world, including issues and difficulties. People learn based on their culture, and designers need to focus on making learners responsible for learning, using experiential learning activities, focusing on facilitator roles by guiding and stimulating learning, having real-world relevance, providing opportunities to collaborate, and allowing for a variety of outcomes. Learning brain model. Herman's brain dominance instrument. Now there are 4 different cells, and I remember this with Herman because he's spelled 4 different ways, and it's a brain model. So there's 2 R's and 2 N's in his name. It's the Herman brain dominance model, and it's a method of personality testing developed by Herman that classifies learners in terms of preferences for thinking in 4 modes based on brain function: left brain, cerebral, left brain, limbic, right brain, limbic, right brain, cerebral. And if you go around in a clockwise direction, there's the experimental self, the feeling self, the safekeeping self, and the rational self. 4 different cells. Its effective learning programs are designed to reach individuals based on how they learn. And that's what Herman's 4 levels brain dominance instrument helps with. External and environmental influences that affect learning. There are several. Stress and time pressures, job status, learning environment, peers, supervisor, family, and company conditions. Multiple intelligences. Question. Which of the theories and models is associated with Howard Gardner? And the answer is multiple intelligences. It's correct because Howard Gardner suggested that intelligence is multifaceted and that traditional intelligence measures are not capable of measuring all of the facets. There are different ways that people learn: interpersonal, logical, mathematical, spatial, visual, musical, linguistic, intrapersonal, bodily, tactical, emotional, naturalistic, and existential. And that's an aptitude for understanding one's purpose. People are usually comfortable with 3 or 4 of these, and awareness of these helps designers plan. Individual learning preferences. Learning styles is a myth. There's no validity in learning styles. Designers should take all modalities into consideration when designing learning. There are different learning modalities. how information is received from the environment into the brain, and that's done through the 5 senses: seeing, hearing, touching, sometimes taste. And it shows here some different designs to consider to make sure that you are incorporating the predominant senses. So for seeing, providing written directions when possible, enhancing the presentation with visuals, graphics, illustrations, diagrams, props, or flowcharts. In hearing, incorporating preferences for hearing words by providing spoken direction, using discussion, debates, panels, or interviews, and planning for buzz groups, small group discussion, or various discussion group configurations. Touching, incorporating preferences for feeling by providing hands-on practice with an actual equipment, forms, or tools, engaging learners in experiential learning activities or solving problems, and allowing time for active review and practice methods. And then finally, the models. There is Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence model, that intelligence is multifaceted and IQ does not measure all those facets. Ned Herman's braid-based approach to learning. Again, Herman, 2 R's and 2 M's. There's 4 quadrants: the left, the right, the cerebral, and the limbic. And it studies how individuals' thinking preferences or brain dominance affect the way that they work, learn, and communicate. Factors leading to speed at which learners learn. CAL are the characteristics of adult learning, and it's a framework that was developed by Patricia Cross. So CAL, C-A-L, and it's a framework that was developed by Patricia Cross to determine why adults participate in learning. Cross synthesized research about motivations and deterrents to adult learning, incorporating assumptions of andragogy into the framework as a means for considering the changing adult developmental stages. And CORE is a chain of responses. It's a model that asserts that adult participation in learning is not an isolated act, but results from a complex series of responses to internal and external variables that either encourage or discourage participation in learning. It was created by Patricia Cross in 1981. And then there's the accelerated learning model. Question: when a TD professional applies accelerated learning principles to his development of a training program, the learning environment he designs must be which of the following? And the answer is positive. Accelerated learning is a positive learning environment where you eliminate stress, fear of failure, and negativity from the learning environment. And it involves music and arts, team collaboration, and shorter learning segments to increase learning efficiency. In this section, we went over business strategy and drivers, and linking talent development to those business drivers, how to design to meet business requirements and achieve strategy. We went through learning theories, the role of adult learning theories in instructional design, theories of learning and memory, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Knowles, adult learning and andragogy, differences between teaching and facilitating learning, individual characteristics of learning, adult development and age, the whole brain thinking model, internal and external influences, Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory, learning modalities, models that incorporate learning preference, and next we're moving into instructional design theories and overview.